it's Lizzie Yuille from Old Stables Crafts, UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Thank you for joining me again today. Today is another of the really exciting OnStage project days. Can't believe it's nearly there. Well, by the time you see this, I will be in Florida and it'll be warm, hopefully. The forecast is 28 degrees, so warmer than we've got in the UK at the moment when it's about 7. Anyway, we seem to have missed out autumn and gone straight into winter. This is one of the swap projects that I have made. I am thrilled that I have the opportunity to spend some time with Brian King, who is one of the really quite well-known American demonstrators. He and his team are spending an evening with the team that I am part of. And part of that evening is going to be swapping, and this is the swap that I have made for that event. I say this is the swap. I should say these are the swaps that I have made for that event. There are going to be 43 people swapping. So yeah, lots made. So I thought I would share how I made it. Now I have done a similar project to this before, not identical, but certainly similar. So, yeah, I just realised I need a piece of scrap. What's a piece of scrap? So, when you're making 43 of anything, obviously mass production is important because the more involved the project is, the more steps it has, the more time it takes, and there is a finite amount of time. And I have stamped on the inside as well. So we've got to see far is one thing, going there is another. I thought that was sort of apt for a UK demonstrator going to the US Stampin' Up live event. So it's one of my favourite stamp set bundles. It is the Lily Pad Lake with the lakeside framelets. I've only actually used the framelets for the boats. Most of what I've done is stamping. Some of it I have done with the Stamparatus and some of it I have done freehand. But I'm going to start with how I've done the boats because that is that was a real time saver and it's a really nice tip for using a Stamparatus. So enter one Stamparatus. I have die cut just on a piece of retired cardstock the dies, and it's one die that cuts all 3 boats in one, and I have already die cut the boats in Whisper White. So obviously when you're making 43 you run the die through the machine 43 times, but when it comes to stamping, if you were to stamp 43 times, oh, I've already got the stamp out, and then try and die cut them, it's quite tricky. So the way to do it is to use your Stamparatus, die cut a mould as it were, get your stamp, pop it in so that it is nicely engaged and sort of a bit loose, and then pick it up. And with your Memento ink, now I tend to do this as an extra step. I know that this is right in that corner, so as an extra step I can just very loosely ink up, stamp, and because this is a laminated surface, although now we have the mini grid papers which fit the Stamparatus perfectly, so you could just use one of the mini grid papers and they're inches and centimetres, so really easy. But as I say, this is a laminated sheet, so I can now move this. I know that that stamp is perfectly positioned. I can move it, grab my chamois and just wipe that clean before popping everything on properly. But obviously if you're doing this for 40 something, then to make sure that you've got your stamps in the right position, it's a really good extra step to take. So I can now pop this back on. As I say, because I know that's in that corner, it's going to be in the right place. Pick up my die cuts, pop them in the hole that they fit into, and then ink up properly and just stamp. And there they are, beautifully done. Now if you wanted to do those a second time to make them really, really dark, you just ink up again. Actually, I've missed a bit at the bottom, although I think I got it the first time. And just stamp again, and it's going to line up. So really quick hint and tip on that one. Now I'm going to take that out because I'm going to do all this in a slightly odd order just so that the Stamparatus is all done. So those are ready to be coloured with my blends. So I'll bring my blends in a moment, but I'm just going to bring in the other Stamparatus plate. And I need to make sure I've got this the right way round. So the stamping on the outside of the card, or on the card, is done again, same idea. I lined up the, that's what you don't want to do, attach your magnets to each other. I've lined up my stamps on my Stamparatus, and again I've just done the same thing, ink them up, make sure they're straight, so that when I come to do it in anger, I very carefully dug out the inks that I need, and can I see them? Oh, I've put them on the other side of my room, of course I have, why wouldn't I? Right, okay, so the ink that I'm using for the sentiment is Pacific Point. So this is just a standard half sheet of A4 scored down the middle, and I'm just inking up the first sentiment. Whoops, I need to move my magnet out of the way. And stamp that down, and then that's beautifully square. And then flip it over, making sure I know that this is the right way up. And take out my plate, bring it straight up, turn it round, pop it straight back down. No trying to pull it out at a funny angle because it won't come. Pop it back down, ink up again, and then my second sentiment, the inside, again, perfectly placed, perfectly straight, and just do that 43 times and you're done. So that's all of the Stamparatus work done. So let me get rid of that for the moment. So that's the outside and inside of the card done. I'll pop that to one side for the moment and don't need my template anymore. I've got two pieces of card. I've got a piece of glimmer paper, which is cut at, she says, grabbing her notes, 2 by 3 inches. So great way of getting lots out of a sheet of 12 by 12. And the Whisper White is 1 7/8 by 2 7/8. And then the next thing to do is to stamp the background. And I'm just going to grab my sample so I know what I'm doing. Now the key to this, to do it quickly, is to work from the lightest colour to the darkest. So the first, let's show you the colours that I'm using. So we've got Pool Party, Balmy Blue, Pacific Point, and my lightest colour is Soft Seafoam. So this is going to be the one that I use first. And then I'm going to be using Pineapple Punch for the sun, but I'm going to do my sea first. So grab my stamp set and the two stamps that I'm going to need. Grab a block and a second block. So I'm using my H block. I'm going to ink that up. Now, when I made these originally, I did 2 at once and then cut them down the middle because, again, that was a time saver. And there is a right way and a wrong way. The pattern is different top and bottom. So this is a very thin line at the top and this one is joined up. I'm going to start with the thin line at the top, but I'm then going to work down. I'm going above halfway, not hugely above halfway, but above halfway. So first one, then turn the stamp over and do it again. Okay, so that's the first one. Then pool party next. And all I'm going to do is just stamp lightly to get rid of any extra ink that's still on the stamp. Make sure that's well inked up. And this time I'm going to start with the stamp the other way up. And just come down a little bit, turn over, come down a little bit, and stamp. And grab my balmy blue. Now I'm not too worried that I've got these lines here because I'm going to have boats covering them up. I will for the next two. I didn't have that on the original because I did them in 2 sheets, in straight strips. So for these ones I'm going to stamp once and then stamp off, but again I'm going to turn my stamp over. So stamp once, ink up, stamp off, turn over and stamp again, and you can already see that the lines are beginning to be covered up. And then the last one is Pacific Point, and again just stamp off any extra and stamp once, stamp off properly, and there we are. So that is our C done. So I don't need that stamp anymore. So the only thing we need to do now is to add our sun. So I've got my B block. You could probably use your A block, but I find it easier to use a slightly larger block. And I need a really technical piece of equipment now called a post-it note. Really subtly not subtle post-it note. So what I'm going to do is just cover up the top of the C, ink up my sun, and then come so it's just above halfway up, and stamp. And then when I remove my post-it note, it's just peeking up over the top of the C. So, okay, so now we need to do some colouring. And some gluing, and then we're done. So I've got my Pacific, what am I saying? My Pineapple Punch blends combo. For the sun, I'm going to use the light colour and just colour that in. So colour in the actual sun so it's solid. And then, just so there's a bit of reflection, all I'm doing is coming down and I'm just scribbling. It's just a hint, it's all it needs. So, that's the only thing I need the light for. Then the boats I have got, I will be using Pacific Point, I've got Pacific Point on my brain, Pineapple Punch again. The dark pumpkin pie, the dark lovely lipstick, the dark Call Me Clover, and the light Night of Navy. So I'm going to do, actually I'll do Call Me Clover first. So the hulls of the boats are all Call Me Clover. So this is really quite quick to do. I think I did these while I was in inverted commas watching television one evening. Then lovely lipstick, just do the stripes, and then the jib, or it might be a Genoa, who knows, but one or the other brings back memories of the days when I used to sail in dinghies. And there is a difference between a jib and a Genoa. Don't ask me what it is because I honestly can't remember. Pineapple Punch Dark for the other jib slash Genoa. I think a Genoa is bigger, but I can't remember. It's a long time ago. Night of Navy Light, and I'm doing the mainsail of the smaller boat in Night of Navy Light. And then everything else is pumpkin pie. There's too many colours that I'm using that are the P alliteration, because I've got Pacific Point, Pineapple Punch and Pumpkin Pie. And I'm getting them all conflusticated. Doesn't take much. So this isn't difficult colouring. It's not as if we're shading anything. It's just basic colouring. Just filling in shapes. So I can tell you that when I was doing the other 40 odd, it got a little monotonous, but there we go. Right, so I need to attach this to that. So for this, I am using quite a lot of multi-purpose liquid adhesive. And I'm using quite a lot because sticking to glimmer paper is a little challenging because it will go into the glimmer paper. But it has worked really well, so I'm quite pleased with how it's worked itself out. So pop those down there. Now, what I would tend to do is put a weight on those so that they get dry. But in true Blue Peter fashion, that's not Blue Peter fashion. Blue Peter fashion would be here's one I prepared earlier, and I haven't prepared one earlier. So I'll shut up. Right, couple of dimensionals on the back of that. Can I get one on the top of that sail? Yes. And this one, I think did I use a large or did I use a small? No, I used a small. So you can see why this is beginning to curl, which is why I had them all squished down. So just bear that in mind, that when you're sticking with liquid adhesive to the glimmer paper, it works really well, but keeping it flat would be a plan. Now I'm deliberately having these come off the side, and I've got the two towards the bottom, and I've kind of lined up the top of the mast with the top of the sea, and then this one again coming off the edge, just there, and then that all gets stuck to our card base. So fold that over and burnish it. If I could find my, there we are, buried under the stamp set. Burnish that, and then more liquid adhesive on the back of this, and pop it towards the top of your card, but square, and you are done. So there you go, another one of my 40 plus swaps ready for OnStage. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below, or you can hop over to my website and leave a comment there. All the information about the products that I've used will be over there. Do remember that for the whole of November, if you're in the UK, if you shop with me and use the host code, for every £30 you spend, you will be entered into a prize draw to win the Many Marvellous markers, £112.75 of product value. And I will be drawing that at the beginning of December, but November is my birthday month, so I thought I would give a present to you. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.